Football League in a stunning development. The Ravens have backed out of the trade for star pass rusher Maxx Crosby. The Raiders announced the news but did not offer any more details. Now, last week, the Ravens acquired the five-time Pro Bowler in a blockbuster for 2 first-round picks in a move that was supposed to improve their pass rush considerably, but now it's off. For more on the situation, I'm joined by CBS Sports lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones. JJ, simply, what happened here?
Madeline, this is something that you do not see at this level of a trade, okay? Sometimes it happens once every year, maybe once every other year, a player's going to back out of a deal, or a team says, we didn't like what we saw when our doctors got their hands on him, and so we're going to back out. It never involves a player who is a perennial all-pro that a team has dealt 2 first-round picks for. Does not happen. So what I can tell you is, according to sources, the trade fell through following a medical evaluation of Maxx Crosby. He posted on Instagram that he was in Baltimore. And so one can take from that and assume that the Baltimore doctors were able to check on him. Now, we know that he dealt with a meniscus injury last year. He was trying to play through it through the end of the year. We remember all the hubbub there in December where he wanted to keep playing. The Raiders were going to shut him down. Were they tanking? Were they doing what was best for Maxx? What I can tell you is that he was struggling during practices for a lot of last season. And the Raiders did feel, while they were hoping to get the #1 overall pick to situate them for Fernando Mendoza, they did believe they were doing the right thing for Maxx Crosby at the time. He gets the surgery by a very famous, well-known doctor, Dr. Neil Elatrash, and the thought is that he was going to be fully healthy and just fine for the 2026 season. But all trades are not official until Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, first of all. And second of all, they are contingent upon the team that is trading for the player feeling good enough about the medical evaluation. Clearly, the Ravens do not feel good enough about the medical evaluation of Maxx Crosby. And look, if it were just a knee thing or just an ankle thing that, he's going to struggle a little bit, but it'll get right, you would think that the Ravens would continue to go through with this. They gave away the 14th overall pick. They gave away next year's first-round pick, something the Ravens have never done in their entire history. But instead, they pull out of the deal. They are going to get back their 14th overall pick. They're going to get back their 2027 first-round pick. Maxx Crosby goes back to the Raiders, and something in such a large deal, Madeline, we have never seen something like this before in the NFL.
Right, because you mentioned the magnitude. I mean, this is Maxx Crosby is no secret. I mean, the entire league knew that he was dealing with a meniscus injury. That shouldn't be a surprise to the Ravens. Whatever they discovered in the medical, was it that bad, or is this a negotiation tactic to say, hey, maybe we want to change the compensation going this way and that way for this deal, or is this deal just DOA?
It's DOA. It's done. That's it.
Yeah.
And what's important to note here is it's impossible to think that Maxx Crosby is going to be a Las Vegas Raider in 2026. We're going to get to potential destinations for him. This isn't the Ravens saying, you know what, we kind of don't really want to do the 2-1s. Let's do a 1 and something else. That's it. Okay. And look, what's also important, we all have been advised by medical professionals, and there are opinions. And so that is not to say that the Baltimore Ravens' medical opinion of Maxx Crosby is fact. That is not to say that 30 other teams would hold the same opinion as what the Baltimore Ravens very clearly believe. But it is within the Baltimore Ravens' right now, before Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, to say, we don't like that, and we are going to pull out of that. We see it a little bit more in the NBA. I know that happened recently between the Lakers and the Hornets on a deal, and that was a big deal. This is so much larger than that. And I can't even begin to describe it. It is shocking to the NFL. I'm getting so many texts right now. I'm getting a text from an agent. How can an agent or a team trust the Ravens again? Is what I just got through right now, because this was a deal done days ago, Madeline. Everybody knew about the knee and had his injury history. And then they get him there, and clearly a medical issue that they say we can't go forward with the 2 first-round picks.
Well, and this also puts the Raiders in a kind of precarious position because, as you mentioned, this happened days ago. They have been proceeding as such, and with the cap space that they understood to be available with Maxx Crosby off the books and all of that to be said, you know, this puts them in a sense of urgency to say, okay, now where do we move Maxx Crosby to? As you mentioned, it's all likelihood that he will not be on the Las Vegas Raiders next season, but this has to really affect the field in terms of, okay, if another team does decide to trade for Maxx Crosby and does decide to use this as like, hey, listen, maybe we offer lower compensation because the Ravens saw something in that medical, maybe we can get him for a little bit less than you were offloading him for? I mean, how does this affect the market for Maxx Crosby?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, because this really does hurt the Las Vegas Raiders in terms of, okay, he's not going to the Baltimore Ravens and you're not getting those 2 1s. Okay, well, we want to get 2 1s from somewhere. Where are they going to come from? Why would somebody else give the Raiders 2 1s right now? Why would they do that? And so this puts them, the Raiders, in a very, very difficult situation. Now, with the brevity of the statement from the Raiders, it is very clear that they disagree with the determination made by the Baltimore Ravens. One can extrapolate that the Raiders had been very clear as far as they could be with the medical situation of Maxx Crosby, right? One would assume that they did not hide anything, and if so, that Baltimore would have asked as many questions as possible to make sure they had sussed out everything that they needed to before their doctors literally got their hands on Maxx Crosby. So where does this leave the Raiders? Fortunately for them, they do have the cap space to bring Maxx Crosby back for a day or 2 or a week. They have that cap space. Imagine if they didn't. Imagine if they were a little closer to the cap and they were making these deals for Tyler Linderbaum and eating the money for Geno Smith and all these things, and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, you got to take Maxx Crosby back under your cap umbrella. That would be a disaster over the next 12, 18 or so hours. So the Raiders can take him back. But in terms of where he's going to go, yeah, the compensation certainly is going to be limited. Now, what I would say is the Dallas Cowboys were very much in the mix for Maxx Crosby. And they were not offering 2 1s, but they were offering a 1 and then a 2 and then maybe a veteran player. I've been reporting earlier today about Osa Odigizua. He was alleged, if you will, to be involved in the trade for Maxx Crosby that ultimately did not go through. The Cowboys still could move on from Osa Odigizua. So one has to assume that even though they went out and just changed some money for Kenny Clark and just went out and got Rashawn Gary, that if the Cowboys still want Maxx Crosby, maybe it's not the same deal as it was 5 days ago, but it still could happen. So the Raiders aren't entirely, in the parlance of our times, screwed. They can still send him somewhere so long as that team's doctors disagree with what the Baltimore Ravens team doctors clearly believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the brevity of the Raiders' statement. 2 sentences, one of which being, "We will have no further comment at this time," shows that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. But you know what? Remains to be seen how this all unfolds. And of course, the new league year doesn't start until Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, when all of these deals and negotiations that the Raiders have been agreeing to with free agents can become official. CBS Sports lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones, thanks so much for the insight. Maxx Crosby's had a pretty good career in the National Football League. Since 2019, he's 6th in the league in sacks, 1st in TFLs, 5th in quarterback hits, and 11th in defensive snaps, but leads all defensive linemen. Coming off a meniscus injury, we'll see how bad that knee injury really is, but the deal is off. Crosby no longer headed to Baltimore. Coming up, we continue to discuss the trade that is no more. News that shocked the NFL world day before the NFL new league year begins. Maxx Crosby no longer headed to Baltimore. We discuss next. CBS rusher Maxx Crosby. The Raiders announced the news but did not offer any more details. Last week, the Ravens acquired the 5-time Pro Bowler in a blockbuster for 2 first-round picks in a move that was supposed to improve their pass rush considerably, but now the deal is off. For more, I'm joined by CBS Sports NFL analyst Emory Hunt. Emory, this is a big news. You don't often see a trade fall apart of this magnitude of a player like Maxx Crosby, who, it's no secret, he was dealing with meniscus issues last season. He had knee surgery, but according to our insider Jonathan Jones, the Ravens just didn't like what they saw with the medical.
Yeah, and that's big because the Ravens wanted this move. They wanted a pass rusher. They need a pass rusher. So it tells you what they saw was significant in that regard. But I really worry about the long term because the ramifications of that is, okay, what other team will want to make this trade? But what would their doctors say? And now you put those team doctors in a situation where it's like, okay, are we going to follow what the Ravens did? Because usually you see the same thing or close to it. Now, how comfortable will you feel to make that move? Or do you back out of it? And can those fences be mended with the Raiders and Maxx Crosby to where he can stay on the football team? Because obviously they would trust their medical expertise on this situation. They had him there for his entire career. And do you find a way to get him at a lower number and renegotiate his contract to where you can fit all those people you sign to those contracts?
Yeah, and as you mentioned too, I mean, another team doctor might see the same thing the Ravens did and say, hey, well, maybe it's not worth giving up 2 firsts for this, but maybe, a different haul in the compensation to get a player of that caliber who's still talented. A lot of people, though, positing, hey, Maxx Crosby off the books for the Ravens. Do they pursue Trey Hendrickson? He's a player, though, who's had injury issues of his own.
Right, and that's the other part of it because now you wonder, okay, well, how much can we get out of Trey Hendrickson for a full 17-game season? And if you're Trey Hendrickson, you say, okay, well, now I know you're desperate. My price has gone up now because you probably was going to think about getting him at a discount, but now he's looking at, I have leverage now. I can ask for this. I can ask for X, Y, Z, and that increases his bank account in terms of Baltimore, who's now desperate. Or if you're the Ravens, you can just sit out and say, you know what? We have the 14th pick. We'll go and draft someone in this year's draft that can be that pass rusher that we need at a younger, healthier cost than Trey Hendrickson. You either take this deal or leave it. You also don't want to price yourself out of it if you're Trey Hendrickson. So that's the dance we'll see people dance now because Hendrickson just gained leverage on teams that may want him as opposed to Maxx Crosby. And also the Ravens can be like, hey, we got a high enough pick to where we can go and make a move and get what we want.
Right, because, of course, that number 14 pick no longer going to the Raiders in that trade if the trade is off. When you look at what the potential options are for Maxx Crosby, though, senior NFL insider Jonathan Jones did mention that the Cowboys had been in the mix in that negotiation process before that trade with the Ravens came to pass. Do you think, if you're a Cowboys front office, this medical and this causing the Ravens to back out gives you pause of repursuing that, or do you jump back in and say, okay, let's get back in this mix?
This is Jerry Jones we're talking about.
That's true.
This is Big D. This is Dallas. This is the stars. This is the lights. This is the bright, Texas sun. And this is the hole in the roof to where a guy can watch his favorite team play. Of course, they're going to be back in the mix. Now, Ravens had pick 14. Dallas have that, I think it's pick 20 in terms of their second first-round pick. That may be more attractive to the Raiders. It may be more attractive to Dallas. They may not even have to come up off a first-round pick dealing with this injury. Like, hey, we can take this trade with a second-round pick as opposed to a first-round pick. But to say, will Dallas be injured? Will Jerry Jones want the story? Come and save the day? Exactly.
Yeah,
like, come
fair.
on now. Of course. I could see him in that seafoam out there rushing the passer. But for Maxx Crosby, it's about being healthy. Right. He has to get 100% ready to go. I don't know what it takes to pass a physical after you just failed one, but we'll see if other team doctors will look past what the Ravens saw enough to where they say, yeah, no deal.
Yeah, and if you're Jerry Jones and you're looking at this as an opportunity to get a deal, right? The Raiders are in a position where they're holding the bag and they got to get rid of something. They've agreed to a lot of contracts in free agency and they can't have it all. So we'll see what happens next as the story continues to unfold. Emery Hunt, thanks so much for the insight. Maxx Crosby gets to the quarterback quite a bit. As we look at the most seasons with 10 or more sacks in Raiders history, Crosby's done it 4 times, second to only Greg Townsend. Quarterbacks hate to see that man coming. We're continuing to break down this breaking news. The trade is off, but the conversations are on. Joined by our 2-time Super Bowl champion, Bryant McFadden, next.